We are now actually halfway through the 2025 regular season, and there are currently 15 undefeated teams left in college football. It's honestly pretty crazy to say, and in today's video, we're going to continue our series where we rank the undefeated teams left in college football. Sometimes people who watch these videos struggle to listen to what I have to say because I always outline how I rank the teams, and it was based on a tier system and a resume and not a power rankings. But either way, there will be no more arguing about it because it is now going to transition to a power ranking. There are only 15 teams left, so I think it's fair to start doing it based off that. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started and rank all 15 undefeated teams left in college football. Okay, so at number 15, we have the Navy Midshipmen. It's been a pretty good year for Navy as they are still 5-0 and currently have a chance at the 2025 college football playoff. Blake Horvath is back at quarterback and he leads them in both passing yards and rushing yards, and so far they've been really good. They beat VMI 52-7 in week 1, UAB 38-24 in week 2, Tulsa 42-23 in week 3, and then these last 2 weekends they beat Rice and Air Force. Both of these were only one possession wins, so it really does feel like Navy is due for a loss here soon, but they are still 5-0. They will absolutely have their work cut out for them, as their last 4 regular season games will be against North Texas, Notre Dame, USF, and Memphis. If they can somehow survive that, they'll definitely end up in the college football playoff, but Navy is the worst best team in college football this year. At number 14, we will stay in the American Conference and talk about the North Texas Mean Green. They're off to one of their best starts in school history, and this could be a special season for them. After losing Chandler Morris and DT Sheffield, many thought the Mean Green would take a step back, but instead, they're 5-0. Drew Mestemaker has 1,300 yards and 11 touchdowns, and has yet to throw an interception. They've also gotten quality play out of their running backs, and so far they have a win over Lamar, a road victory over Western Michigan, a bloodbath against Washington State, a former Power 4 team, and then recently they beat Army by 1 possession, and now beat South Alabama by 14. I don't think North Texas will make the college football playoff by any means, but they are having a special season right now. They'll face off with number 24 USF this Saturday, and if they can pull that off, I might take them a bit more seriously, but it also could be their last week on the list right now, and that would kind of be sad. This offseason, first-year head coach Dan Mullen put together a band of misfit toys, and they've actually done really well this year. The Rebels are currently 5-0, and it looks like they're not missing Barry Odom at all. Anthony Colandrea has over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns, and Jaden Thomas is one of the top running backs in the nation. Jaden Bradley's also been incredible at the receiver spot, and so far UNLV is 5-0 with a 7-point win over Idaho State, a 2-possession win over Sam Houston State, a win over UCLA, which looks better now, and then wins against both Miami of Ohio and Wyoming. Obviously UNLV isn't the best team in the world, but they're also not bad either. They're beating the teams that are in front of them, and they should beat Air Force before a big matchup with Boise State. If they can get through that, there's a decent chance UNLV could run the table and make the 2025 college football playoff, which I think would be pretty incredible. The Memphis Tigers tried to do everything they could to get into a Power 4 conference, even offering millions of dollars, but that didn't work. They're now making people pay, as they're currently 6-0 and ranked number 23 in the nation. Memphis is having a really good season, and they're led by their transfer quarterback Brandon Lewis. Sutton Smith has become a good running back. Memphis is playing good football as they beat Chattanooga, Georgia State and Troy on the road, Florida Atlantic, blew out Tulsa, and then their best win came in a 1-point victory over Arkansas, an SEC school. Arkansas isn't the best team in the SEC, but beating them is still very impressive, and they're now 6-0, and I'd argue have a really good resume right now, and if they run the table, they would get in over UNLV. But they still have to play Tulane, Navy, and USF, and we'll see if they can make it through. Ranked ahead of Memphis is the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. They're the first Power 4 team on this list, and led by quarterback Haynes King, they have been really good. Jamal Haynes and Malachi Hosley have been really good at the running back spot, and then Isaiah Canyon and Eric Rivers have led the way in the receiver department. Georgia Tech definitely wins the ball by running, as they upset Colorado on the road 27-20 in week 1, before then beating Gardner-Webb. They had an incredible matchup with number 12 Clemson, in which they won off of a crazy field goal, and then since then, they beat Temple and survived a scare with Wake Forest in overtime. They were obviously on bye last week, and while Georgia Tech does have a resume, they've only won these games by 1 possession, and the wins are looking worse by each week. Colorado is falling apart, Wake Forest isn't very good, and Clemson's still trying to figure things out. Luckily, their schedule isn't terribly difficult, as I'd say their 3 toughest games left are against Pitt, Duke, and number 10 Georgia, and there's a real chance that Georgia Tech could make a run to the playoff, but they just need to execute. In front of Georgia Tech, we have BYU. BYU enjoyed a breakout season last year, and they sort of came out of nowhere, and they followed up 2025 with another undefeated start, and they are truly going under the radar. The Cougars are currently ranked at number 18 in the nation, and are 5-0. They're led by true freshman quarterback Bear Bachmeier, who has over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. LJ Martin leads the way at running back, and Chase Roberts has become their go-to wide receiver, alongside Parker Kingston. BYU has played solid and good football, as they beat Portland State 69-0 in Week 1, beat Stanford 27-3 in Week 2, and then went on the road and beat East Carolina 34-13. These last 2 weeks have been interesting for them, as they beat back-to-back Power 4 opponents, beating Colorado by 3 on the road, and then beating West Virginia at home by 14. BYU now has 3 wins over Power 4 teams, and they have a chance at doing something special in the Big 12. Their next 4 games are difficult though, as they'll have to travel to Arizona, play Utah, Iowa State, and Texas Tech, and we'll see if they can split those games. They obviously have a chance at the college football playoff, but I feel like BYU is due to lose here soon. In front of BYU, we have my Missouri Tigers. They're currently ranked number 14 in the nation and have a 5-0 record. After losing a lot of their top players to the NFL draft, Mizzou reloaded through the transfer portal, grabbing Ahmad Hardy from Yale Monroe, Bo Prabula from Penn State, and Kevin Coleman Jr. from Mississippi State. It has worked to perfection so far, as Drinkwitz has the Tigers with an undefeated record, as Bo has 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns through the air. Ahmad Hardy, Jamal Roberts, and Marquise Davis have been incredible on the ground, and Kevin Coleman, Marquise Johnson, and Brett Norfleet are a 3-headed monster of receivers. Mizzou ended up beating Central Arkansas 61-6 in Week 1, defeated Kansas in the Border War game 42-31 in Week 2, and then beat Louisiana 52-10. The most impressive victory came against South Carolina, as they knocked off the Gamecocks with Lenora Sellers 29-20, and then they beat UMass at home, which doesn't really say much. The Tigers obviously have 2 decent wins against Kansas and South Carolina, but they have not yet won on the road. They also haven't yet played a ranked team, but they'll face off with number 8 Bama this week. The SEC grind really starts after that, as they have games against Auburn, Vandy, A&M, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, and if Mizzou wants to make the college football playoff, they need to find a way to win at least 5 of those games. Speaking of teams that are trying to make a run at this year's college football playoff, ahead of the Missouri Tigers, we have the number 9 Texas Tech Red Raiders. They are currently 5-0 and have a real shot at winning the Big 12. Aaron Morton at quarterback has been incredible, as he's thrown for 1,400 yards and 12 touchdowns. Cameron Dickey and Jacoby Williams have been hard to stop at running back, as they have combined for over 700 yards and 10 touchdowns, and then Coy Eakin is their leading receiver. Tech beat Arkansas Pine Bluff 67-7 in Week 1, and then beat Kent State 62-14 in Week 2. They ended up also beating the Oregon State Beavers in Week 3, but they're really terrible right now at 0-6. Their best 2 wins have come in the last 3 weeks, as they beat number 16 Utah 34-10, and then this past weekend beat an undefeated Houston team 35-11. Texas Tech now has 2 quality wins on the road, which is pushing them up my power rankings, and right now I'd say they're the best team in the Big 12. We'll see if they can run the table though, as they still have to face off against Kansas, Arizona State, and BYU. Ranked right in front of Texas Tech, I have the Indiana Hoosiers. They're currently ranked number 7 in the nation, and they are also 5-0. Indiana is led by Cal transfer Fernando Mendoza, who has 1,200 yards and 16 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. Roman Hemby has become the breakout running back for them, and then Omar Cooper and Elijah Surratt have gone crazy at the receiver spot, and both have a chance to go in day 2 of this year's draft class. Indiana football is playing really well in year 2 under Coach Sig, as they beat Old Dominion in Week 1, killed Kennesaw State in Week 2, shut out Indiana State in Week 3, and then had one of the biggest wins against a top 10 team in college football history, dismantling number 9 Illinois 63-10. They then also had an impressive win going on the road and beating Iowa, and faced with adversity, Fernando Mendoza made a big play to win the game, and they are still undefeated. They'll face off with number 3 Oregon this week, in what is probably one of the biggest games in Indiana football history, and if they can somehow get through that, they don't have a ranked team left on the schedule, but Penn State still does scare me. We'll have to wait and see, but I think Indiana's really good this year. At number 6, I'm going to rank the Oklahoma Sooners there. They are also ranked number 6 in the AP poll, and are currently at 5-0. Brent Venables' job was on the line, and he has absolutely produced, as John Mateer has thrown for 1,200 yards and 6 touchdowns, and Torrey Blaylock has blown up at the running back position. Mateer has also become a great runner, and overall, Oklahoma is just playing really solid football this year. Despite Mateer being injured, they are still undefeated, as they beat Illinois State 35-3 in Week 1, knocked off number 15 Michigan in Week 2 24-13, and then went on the road and killed Temple. Since then, they also beat number 22 Auburn 24-17, before beating Kent State 44-0 this past Saturday. Obviously, their two best wins are against Michigan and Auburn, and maybe they shouldn't be ranked this high, but to be fair, they are currently playing it without Mateer, and I think Oklahoma is better than the box score indicates. But the schedule will get much more difficult, as for the rest of the season, they will play 5 ranked teams, and then they'll play against South Carolina and Texas. Each one of those games is going to be extremely difficult, and I think Oklahoma has to get to 10 wins if they want to make the playoff, but that's going to be difficult. They'll have to win 5 of their last 7 games. Ahead of Oklahoma, I have another SEC team in the Texas A&M Aggies. They are also ranked at number 5 in both polls, and Mike Elko has done a tremendous job. Marcel Reed currently has 1,300 passing yards and 11 touchdowns, and Le'Veon Moss and Reuben Owens have become a great pair at the running back position. They ended up doing extremely well in the transfer portal, getting both Mario Craver and KC Concepcion, as both of them are some of the top receivers in the SEC, and they have really made Marcel's job easier. They beat UTSA 42-24 in Week 1, beat Utah State 44-22 in Week 2, and then knocked off number 8 Notre Dame on the road in a crazy finish. Tyler Buckner botched the snap, they had a weird holding call that brought back a kickoff touchdown, and then on 4th down, that same guy caught the touchdown. Either way, it was crazy, and since then, they've continued to play good football, as they beat Auburn 16-10, and then this past weekend beat Mississippi State 31-9. It feels like Mississippi State is now going to fall apart. Either way, it was still a big win for Texas A&M, and they are 5-0 and 2-0 in the SEC. They honestly don't have the worst remaining schedule in the SEC, as they play Florida, Arkansas, South Carolina, and Texas, plus a game against Samford. Road games against LSU and Mizzou seemingly are going to be the 2 difficult matchups for them, and A&M I think has a legit shot at getting to the playoff this year. We now have another SEC team ranked in front of them, and that is the Ole Miss Rebels. They have definitely been faced with adversity in 2025, as Austin Simmons was groomed to be the next big thing after Jackson Dart, but instead, they would have to turn to Trinidad Chambliss. He was a Division II national champion at Ferris State, and he came in to be the backup. He now has over 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns, plus 2 more scores on the ground. Mizzou transfer Kejuan Lacey has been incredible, and in the receiving game, both Deuce Alexander and Harrison Wallace have stepped up in a huge way. Ole Miss has beaten 3 Power 4 teams, as they beat Kentucky on the road, Arkansas at home, and number 4 LSU, plus a good Group of 5 win over Tulane, and a blowout over Georgia State. They have an extremely good resume, but they also have some difficult games to finish the year, as they have to go on the road to both Georgia and Oklahoma, plus they get Florida, at Mississippi State, and home against South Carolina. They should beat both the Citadel and Washington State, but we'll have to wait and see how Ole Miss finishes the year. We now get to our final 3, and I first want to talk about the Oregon Ducks. Dan Lanning has done an incredible job coaching them, and he's also done a great job at bringing in talent. Former UCLA transfer Dante Moore has stepped up and become one of the top quarterbacks in the country, throwing for 1,200 yards and 14 touchdowns. True freshman Dyer Hill Jr. has led the way at running back, and a true freshman by the name of DeCorian Moore has also been incredible at the receiver spot. Oregon has just been extremely well-rounded this year, and that led to wins against Montana State, a blowout over Oklahoma State 69-3, and a road victory over Northwestern 34-14. They also beat Oregon State in the Civil War, but their best win came on the road against number 3 Penn State in the whiteout. Despite the deafening crowd, Dante Moore executed, the defense executed, and they came out with a win. Penn State ended up laying an egg against UCLA, so I'm not really sure how good the Nittany Lions really are. Either way, that is still a huge win for Oregon, and I have them at 3rd. They play a really tough Indiana team this week as the number 7 Hoosiers come to town, and after that, the toughest game is probably a matchup with USC, or maybe a road game against Washington. Oregon looks destined to not only make the college football playoff, but potentially get to the Big Ten championship. At number 2, I have the Ohio State Buckeyes. A bunch of people were complaining in the comment section last week because they didn't have them ranked higher, but again, I clearly lay out how I rank the teams. It's based on resume, not on power ranking, but Ohio State has finally gotten to the point where they are just destroying good teams. They beat number 1 Texas 14-7 in week 1, killed Grambling 70-0, and then beat a good Ohio team 37-9. These last 2 weeks they've also been pretty good, as they went on the road and beat Washington 24-6, and then curb stomped Minnesota 42-3. I guess the Texas win is not looking as good as it did originally, but who cares? Ohio State is now starting to dominate, and it's behind their new starters. Julian Sayin is a new quarterback, and he's thrown for 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns. True freshman Bo Jackson has taken running back 1 with 360 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate have been incredible at the receiver spot. Ohio State is in good shape, as they still have some tough games against Illinois, Penn State, and Michigan, but I think they end up running the table, and they have a chance at repeating as a national champion. And finally at number 1, we have the Miami Hurricanes. They are currently ranked number 2 in the nation and 5-0, and Miami has had quite the year. Despite losing Cam Ward, Carson Beck has stepped in, throwing for 1,200 yards and 11 touchdowns, and Mark Fletcher has become the go-to running back. True freshman Malachi Toney has become an incredible receiver, and then CJ Daniels, the transfer from LSU and Liberty, has also been really good. Ruben Bain might be one of the best players in college football on defense, and in general, their defense has done a 180. It's what cost them an opportunity to go to the playoff last year, but now it's one of their biggest strengths. They beat number 6 Notre Dame 27-24 in week 1 before destroying Bethune-Cookman. They then would knock off number 18 USF 49-12 before back-to-back wins against the Florida schools, as they beat the Gators 26-7 and then this past weekend beat their rival Florida State 28-22. The box score makes it look a lot closer than it was. Miami now has 4 quality wins, and the schedule gets a lot easier. Games against SMU and Pittsburgh are probably the 2 toughest left on the schedule, but there is a real chance that Miami goes undefeated, and they honestly should at this point, and it's almost certain they're going to make the playoff, unless catastrophe strikes. But yeah, in today's video, I ranked all 15 undefeated teams left, and let me know your thoughts. How long will some of these teams remain undefeated? What did I get right and wrong? And what topic should I do next? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.